Hi, I'm Esther and this is Sarah, and we're here from Red Dog Blue Cat. And we're going to talk to you today, especially Sarah is going to talk to you today about Raw 101, a refresher and a return to the basics. So Sarah, to start us off, tell us a little bit about you and why you love animals so much.
All right. I don't know why I love animals so much, actually. I just always have. Ever since I was a kid, I used to bring the neighbor's cats home. I just wanted a dog. I wanted a pony. That's all I ever wanted. I was obsessed with them. So when I was old enough to get my first job, that's what I did. I went and worked in a pet store, and then I worked in a veterinary clinic, and I worked in zoos, and pretty much just anything to do with animals. And I started getting more specialized into carnivores. I really enjoyed working with carnivores, and our local zoos here had some, and we have a local place that does animals for film, and I worked for them as well, and got to learn about how to feed them, how to take care of them, and realized it really wasn't that different from what I should be feeding my own dog. So when I got my first dog, I was feeding him dry food at the time, and he wasn't doing well. And then I met an amazing lady named Julianne Lee, who some of you probably know from Adored Beast Apothecary. And she had a veterinary clinic at the time. And I went to go work for her, and I was there for 5 years. And I learned all about how to feed fresh food to even really sick animals, and dogs and cats that, right from puppies and kittens up until seniors, and got to see how much difference it made for a lot of really sick pets.
Cool.
Yeah.
And so as a pet nutrition specialist and as a homeopath yourself, can you tell us a little bit about why raw is an optimal diet for dogs and cats?
I try to explain it in terms of especially if you have a sick animal, it's really important to remember that if the food that you're feeding is causing harm to the pet, then the illness that they're dealing with, you can't really see what it is. So if you have a pet with allergies, or you have a pet with IBS, for example, and you're feeding something very processed and not very in line with what they would naturally eat, then it's what we call an obstacle to cure. So it means that you're putting something in the way of helping them get better. So until you take that source of insult away, or that source of illness away, they can't actually help themselves. So we, in the clinic, we would put them onto a raw diet as their base, so that we could actually see what was happening. And sometimes with a real diet, nothing was happening. They were healthy. And sometimes it would just clear up enough for us to be able to see, okay, this is really what they're dealing with, and this is what we have to do with them. And it made such a huge difference. So, and even people who think, oh, my pet is fine and healthy on a dry diet, they switch them onto raw, and they're like, oh gosh, they were not healthy before. So that happens a lot.
Wow. And so you've alluded to it, but can you tell us specifically what's the difference between a processed diet, either dry or canned, and a raw diet, frozen raw diet? What is that?
Well, the biggest difference is that the nutrients, when you're feeding a processed food, are largely coming from synthetic premixes. So they're all synthetically added back in, the vitamins, minerals, etc. And the quality of the macronutrients and the type of macronutrients, so your protein, your fat, and your carbohydrate, they can come from some pretty questionable places. So if you really want to have health, you just think about it for yourself, if you were not feeling good in your body and you felt sick and you went to your doctor and you said, man, my gut is feeling funny, I don't feel good, I'm not feeling well. And they said, hey, you got to take this bag of food, eat this, don't cut out all the salad, all the fresh food, all the fruit, and don't eat any of that because that's going to make you sick. And then you eat this bag of food and you're going to feel way better. So if you think about it that way, it doesn't make any sense. And it really doesn't make sense for our pets either. So I love my vets. I have a couple. I have one for my horses. I have one for my dogs and cats, and they're amazing. But they don't specialize in nutrition a lot of the time. So it's been a bit of a rabbit hole for me going into it as much as I have. But I do really like to share with people what I've learned. And what I've learned basically is that they need to eat fresh food.
Yeah, for sure. And at Red Dog, of course, we agree with that. So how would you describe the formulations of Red Dog? We have cat formulations specifically, and we have dog formulations.
Yeah.
So can you talk a little bit about the difference between those two?
So the other thing I wanted to mention about fresh food is that when you're feeding fresh, there's not a lot of synthetic premix added back in, and in the Red Dog formulas there's hardly any at all. So the nutrition is coming from the actual food, which is totally different. And so for dogs, they can actually use vegetation in their diet, which some people kind of argue, but we see benefits when we add it, especially for the prebiotic aspects, and also for antioxidants and trace minerals and things like that. So I think there's 20% or 15% in a lot of our dog diets, and not very much, 2 or 3% in our cat diet. So cats are obligate carnivores and dogs are carnivores, but they're also scavengers, so they can eat a little bit more diversity in their diet.
Thanks. And can you comment on cats? And we choose at Red Dog to put 2 to 3% veg, and some people say cats should not eat vegetables at all. Can you comment just briefly about why we choose to put the veggies in the cat formulas?
Yeah, so they don't eat vegetables technically in the wild, except for grasses. They do eat some grasses. And the reason they do that is for roughage and just for physical roughage going through their gut. And that helps them deal with hairballs. It helps them deal with their bowel. It helps them pass things. And with a lot of cats these days live indoors. And they're moving around less, so they're not pooping as much, and they can get a little backed up. A lot of people are dealing with constipation in their cats, and so that's something that we do specifically to help with indoor cat constipation. It's one of the main reasons that we do it. So that way, if they're not having access to grass to eat and other ways of getting fiber, they can get a little bit of it through their food that way.
Right. And my understanding is that with Red Dog formulas, everything is carefully balanced between muscle meat, organ meat, fat, bone, and veg. So, and every meal is complete, but the idea with Red Dog, because the Red Dog products, the Red Dog meals are all single source proteins. And so it's a really great idea to mix between red meat, white meat, and fish, and have a rotation of all of those. And then that's how you truly get a complete diet. That's what I've learned from you and Julianne Lee, etc. So switching. People often ask, what's the best way to switch a dog or a cat from whatever they were eating onto a raw diet?
So I have two answers for that. Usually one is for healthy pets and the other one is for animals with potential health issues. And so for healthy pets, it's pretty easy. You can either switch them from their dry food diet onto the raw over a 7 to 10 day period. I do recommend usually soaking the dry food so that it's a lot more hydration for them. It's a lot closer to the raw food. And then as they switch on to the raw, they're getting hydrated while they're switching. So it makes it a lot easier for them to handle new foods. And then with the other option would be to use a canned food and then mix the raw into the canned food and switch them over that way. Try not to switch too rapidly. That's always a recipe for diarrhea and vomiting. So
Don't want that now,
yeah,
do
so always make sure you do gradually whenever you add something new. And usually I recommend to just use one protein or two proteins, and then as they're onto the raw diet, then you can start to diversify, which we do recommend. And then with animals who are not feeling great, maybe have some digestive issues or some other health issue that is causing them to have some limitations with their food, you would want to do it on a much slower basis. You might even take a month to switch. It's often good to do it with someone who has some experience, and also you can always do a modified version where you cook the diet for a while and then later you switch them on to raw if you think that that might work better. And it does in some cases.
So, and what if people need other help? Where could they go? What might they turn to look for some other help?
Well, there's sometimes you luck out and you find a really good holistic veterinarian that can help you, and some of them have taken some extra nutrition training and understand more about feeding fresh food, which is very different from feeding processed foods. And also, I work with a lot of veterinarians for specific different things. Lots of animals with allergies and GI issues and autoimmune diseases and really strange things that make them really sensitive. So if you're having that type of an issue with your pet and you tried lots of different things, I have some ways that I like to deal with that that are pretty gentle, and I am happy to work with people's veterinarians as well if they're open to that. So if you're in that boat where you have a animal with health issues and you're kind of scared to switch on your own, or you're not really sure how to balance the diet for them, I can definitely help you do that. We do have services online as well, and we could do customized diet plans for pretty much any pet. And also look at their diagnostics and work with your vet and make sure we're doing the most customized thing for them to help them to hopefully recover from what they are dealing with.
Awesome. Thanks, Sarah. And there are several other videos that you can watch as well. And one of them that's, I think, one of your favorites is the top 3 myths that you have to deal with about raw food and what people ask. What are those 3 myths, just to leave people with something to look for next?
So as retailers, and I know a lot of you guys watching are working in a retail setting, there are a lot of myths that you're going to come up against, and there are 3 that I hear a lot that are not really true, but people really believe that they are true. So you're going to hear them in the store, and you probably already heard them. So the first one is that there's lots of bacteria in raw food. It's going to make your pet sick. So we have lots of information to debunk that myth. And the next one is that there's no such thing as a balanced and complete diet if you're just using fresh food, which, if you think about that, doesn't really make sense either. So we can help you make sure that it is balanced and complete. And the last one is that there's no science regarding raw feeding and whether or not it actually makes any difference. And that maybe used to be true 15, 20 years ago, but it's no longer true. There's lots of research. So we have a whole video to show you more information about how you can approach those questions with people that might be afraid to switch to raw because they've heard these myths, and just making people feel comfortable with these ideas so that they are more open to switching to raw, and that means we can help more pets.
Exactly. So there's going to be also a video on what is HACCP, that's HACCP, and all the safety protocols and requirements that we do at Red Dog all the time as a matter of course. There will be some explanations on exactly what Red Dog products are in great detail. There will be a video on sales tools, etc. So check out the other videos when you have time to, and thank you so much for joining us. Happy selling.
Thanks for
Bye.
watching.